So here are some classic mistakes that home buyers, home sellers in Denver, and to be frank, a lot of realtors in Denver will make when they're trying to figure out how to help somebody with a home. So often people will see Denver as a monolith. They'll say, I want to buy a house in Denver. I want to buy a house in or near Denver, within 5 miles of central Denver. Well, Denver, it's one city, but it's also a city, a metro area. And within the city itself, there are kind of micro cities. All these little neighborhoods, the neighborhoods really have their own vibe, their own flair, and they offer such different things. So to say, hey, I have $600,000, I'd like to buy a bungalow in Denver, we need to drill a whole lot deeper than that. Now, comps or comparable sales, they are the bread and butter of our business. But in a place like Denver, you can't just draw a circle around a property and say, well, these are the homes that sold. This is the price per square foot on each of those homes. And so my home should be worth the average of those price per square foot. That's what a lot of people do. Some agents do. Algorithms certainly do that. Algorithms will pick up the weirdest comparable sales to your home. And then you can be just a block or so away from one neighborhood, and it has a huge impact on the price of your home and on the feel of where you're living. I actually had a seller one time who had bought his home with another real estate agent, and he didn't realize that he bought his home one block outside of Hilltop. He thought he was in the Hilltop neighborhood, and he gauged his purchase on that. And when we turned around to sell the house, we had to adjust for pricing based on that. And even before he sold his house, the reason why he wanted to sell his house was because he really wanted to live in Hilltop, not one block away. You know, a lot of the time we can get so deeply into the questions about price and questions about the type of home that we want to be in that we forget about really important things like walkability. You know, the walkability of a neighborhood for some people just doesn't really matter very much at all. There are a lot of people I work with who love to jump in their car, but especially when you're dealing with these older central Denver neighborhoods, walkability can be super important. That's really what people are looking for. And if you have to walk an additional 3 or 4 blocks before you get to the ice cream shop or the cafe, that could be a big deal for a lot of people. That could be a big deal for you, and you really don't want to overlook it. One thing that that an experienced realtor, a good realtor who's working a lot, is never going to do is just assume that they know what you want if you're a buyer or if you're a seller. Sometimes for a buyer, the first thing that they say is not exactly what they're looking for. We have to ask more deep, probing questions in order to really get an understanding of what that buyer is interested. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths with a garage in some neighborhood is not exactly what people are looking for. And we know, as experienced realtors who really know the neighborhoods, we know how to ask the probing questions that will help focus a home buyer's search. And with sellers, this same question can be just as important, figuring out what the seller really wants. Because I'll tell you, it is very easy to just make the assumption that the seller wants to make the most money they possibly can from the sale of their house. It's usually the first thing that a seller is going to say. And to be very honest, that's usually a very important consideration, maybe the most important consideration. But time is also really important. You know, hey, am I going to be able to make the most money, but it's going to take me a year? Or am I going to be able to make what the market is willing to bear and be out of my house in 45 to 60 days? Also, a lot of the time sellers are thinking about the amount of work that they want to put into a property. And in order to get top dollar, you often have to put an awful lot of work into a place. I actually had one seller years ago who I gave them the best ideas for how to make the most money on their property. a few different ways with few different levels where they could make the most money, they could make something close to that, and then what I thought was standard. And what wound up coming out was that they didn't really want to make the most money at all. They had a brother who was living in the house and lived in the basement of the house, smoked like 3 packs a day in the basement of the house. And they wound up saying, hey, the most important thing to us is that our brother doesn't have to move out of the house and stop smoking in the house until we actually get the house sold. It was a real surprise. I mean, it was a difference of 30, 45 days that the brother was going to be able to live in this house. It cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars, but that was what they were really looking for. You know, a lot of agents, especially newer agents, are really only going to talk about the hot neighborhoods, the hottest neighborhoods in a place like Denver, because those are the neighborhoods they know, and those are the neighborhoods that are cool. They're the ones that come up in conversation. But there are some sleeper neighborhoods that are close to central Denver, close to downtown, that when home buyers get a chance to check them out, they will realize these neighborhoods are great, often better. Often, if you want something quieter, they're quieter than the hot neighborhoods. And the neighborhoods that kind of fly under the radar, often they're the next ones that will experience really big increases in price. A couple of signs that you might be working with the wrong realtor. One, the first one, and most important, I think, is probably if that real estate agent is making themselves the hero. You'll see if they're putting themselves in the middle of the conversation and not you in the middle of the conversation, that's a huge sign that you might be working with the wrong person. This is your process. This is all done so that you can buy or sell a home, not so that the real estate agent can notch a win in their belt, get a commission, or so that they can have so that they can show how they managed to get you through something hard. It's your process. You know, a great realtor is going to figure out how to understand your internal conflict. They're going to ask you enough questions, they're going to listen hard, and then they're going to understand what it is that makes this difficult process, because buying or selling a home, it's always difficult, and there's always going to be conflicts in there for our clients. So what is it that's creating conflict, that's making it difficult to make decisions within the real estate process for our clients? Getting this job done and getting it done right is all about trust. Most of us as realtors, if we're at good real estate firms, if we have some experience under our belts, we have the same tools, or at least we know about the existence of the same tools. We can all put together a market analysis, especially if somebody knows the neighborhood fairly well. We can put together a good market analysis that takes into account the nuance of the neighborhood. But the most important thing that we can do as real estate professionals is engender trust in our clients, and we can take a step kind of out into the void. We have to do it a lot to tell our clients things that might be difficult, that our clients might not want to hear. And we have to tell them with kindness, but we have to tell them, if your house isn't selling, I have to tell you, hey, it isn't selling, and these are the reasons that I think it's not selling, and it's my advice to make some changes. Those things only work if the agent is very competent, and if the client has a lot of trust in that agent, and that trust just comes from building rapport, building a relationship, and from seeing what the agent has done previously within the market. Well, it looks like I have wandered far enough down 6th Avenue and then down south on Claremont, another gorgeous parkway, and have wound up at Cranmer Park. It's an iconic park in the Hilltop neighborhood. It is surrounded by gorgeous architecture, absolutely beautiful homes over here. It's a super nice place to just sit, relax. They have a really cool sundial in the middle of the park. Just something to enjoy. I think I am going to sit down over here with the laptop and get a little bit of work done out in the sun.